to our next guest, who is Professor Franklin Ngwu. Following the rebasing of Nigeria's gross domestic report, the National Bureau of Statistics on Monday, July 21st, stated that the country's economy grew by 3.13% in the first quarter of 2025, from the 2.27% recorded in the same period in 2024. According to the Statistician General of the Federation, Adeyemi Adeniran, the economy was rebased from the 2010 base year to 2019. He said that in nominal terms, the economy grew to 372.82 trillion naira from 205.09 trillion naira in the base year of 2019, adding that by ranking the GDP estimates at the 2019 base year, real estate ranked third, displacing crude oil and natural gas to the fifth position. Professor Franklin Ngwu is an economist, chartered risk manager, and professor of strategic management and governance with Lagos Business School, Pan Atlantic University. He's also the director of the Lagos Business School Public Sector Initiative, and previously he served as a senior policy and research consultant with African Development Bank Group. He joins me here now on this day, live, the Sunday Talk Show. Professor Ngwu, good to have you on the program.
Thank you for having me. Happy Sunday.
Now, there's been a lot of talk during the week about this GDP rebasing by the Bureau of National Statistics. And okay, the experts, economics, say, oh, it's too controversial, it's misunderstood, and all that. But laymen like us, we ask, salaries are not being paid. Government officials are what they call the expenditure approach, I think, in calculating GDP growth. They are spending money as if it will go out of circulation. Conspicuous consumption. Productivity is also another element. Productivity is very low. And yet we say year over year, Nigeria is progressing with GDP. Okay, so the question laymen like us we ask is it statistics we eat? They are talking about current realities. You know, we are rebasing after 2010, 2019. What is in it for the common man? That's the kind of thing we just want to hear. Or this is just statistics for statistics purpose.
No, I think that both statistics and what the common man expects, they're all important. First of all is that rebasing your GDP is a normal thing that happens in different parts of the world. It's supposed to be done every 5 or 10 years, as the case may be. But of course, Nigeria we did 2010. Now they are saying that we are going to use 2019 as the base year because it was the year before COVID set in, to reflect current realities, structures of the economy, and all that. So in terms of academic or policy making, it is correct, it is fine, it is expected. However, what we expect, like, of course, as you say, like common Nigerians, expect better life, they expect better things to happen to their GDP per capita, expect better jobs, expect food security, expect, good things. But you show that there is a misalignment between what we are trying to do and the outcomes. However, even if you look at the rebased GDP, we haven't really moved because we are still fourth in Africa. So we are still behind South Africa, Egypt, or I think Algeria, or one of them. So, and even the value of our GDP, it seems that we are even retrogressing. Well, we are now about $250 billion as compared to where we were before. And remember also that the target is for us to be among the top 20 in the world. But we are now number 40, which means we are so far behind. And even if we look at what the president said and what the government is saying, that we want to create a $1 trillion economy. And now we are just $250 billion. It tells you that for us to even achieve close to $1 trillion, we have to grow by maybe about 3 to 4 times of what we currently have, which means that we have to be growing between 12 to 15%. It then
not
means
3.1%.
Not 3.1%. So it is not even, it's not encouraging at all that we are saying that we are growing at 3.1% and people were saying that we are doing well. Then when you now break it down a little further, the agricultural sector that is supposed to be the big elephant in the room performed abysmally. I think 0.1% or 1%, something like that. So it means that, and that is the area that Nigerians expect to benefit, expect to be involved in terms of inclusive growth, inclusive development. It means that a lot of effort needs to be done by this government to really, really put things in order for common Nigerians.
Okay, breaking it down sector by sector before I ask the other questions. We're told that real estate is now third. Then trade also did well. Telecoms did well. Now agriculture, crop production came, down the line. And then oil and gas did not do well. Now, what do you think is responsible for the services sector, the retail, the real estate sector, and the trade sector doing better? Because all that just looks like, buying and selling, doing well. Whereas there is an omission in terms of reproduction.
There is a serious, omission and misalignment. So when you look at the service sector, the key subsector of the service sector that did well will be the financial services, the banks. Of course, if you use your phone now and make a transfer, of course, the bank gets a commission. If you do anything in the financial services, they collect something. If you do in insurance, so of course, volume of transaction in the financial services can be considered to be high, which now enables you to say that they are growing or is growing. The same thing with trade. But the area we are supposed to be focusing on is in terms of the productive sectors of the economy. And I mentioned agriculture. Even the crop production, not encouraging. Livestock, not encouraging as well. So it means that the government needs to do more reforms and they need to be more focused in terms of what we are trying to achieve in Nigeria. So if you ask now and say, what is the target that by 2027, what are we trying to achieve in agriculture? It's not clear. What are we trying to achieve in product, in terms of manufacturing? It's not clear. So, of course, real estate will do well because the population growth is increasing. People, of course, we already have housing deficits, and more people are moving into the job market. More people are getting married. More people are moving out of their parents' house. More people need their own space. So, expectedly, there's a demand. So the more as you build, of course, people will occupy. And also, rent is also going up. Of course, what we pay for 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom or a duplex has gone up significantly. But the focus of the government and even the private sector should be how do we improve on manufacturing and agriculture? Because these are the key sectors that will really lift us. We think that we are more or less focusing on the cosmetics. But the real sector that will drive the economy seems to be going backwards.
Well, in 2012, Nigeria's GDP growth was 520 billion. And now we are quoting, is it 250 billion? Yes. Now we have lost within the intervening period up to about 277 billion. Yes. And yet some economies are, jubilating. But what should be the implications for policy? Because I've read some people saying, well, this is not about the cost of akpuroko or tomato in the market. It's about policy. Now, do you see a capacity in terms of our governance projections to be able to use this data produced by government itself to, upscale policy?
No, I think, yes, this data provides an opportunity to rethink so many things. However, I'm very concerned with regards to the capacity of the government to appreciate the urgency of this situation that we have, to be able to, first of all, properly rethink the policies, properly coordinate the policies, properly ensure good execution of the policies. So we talked about agriculture now. I'm not sure what the Minister of Agriculture is doing in agriculture. He's not been engaging Nigerians. He's not been in terms of engaging the states, engaging the local government, engaging the whole economy to say this is a very important something. So we have a coordinating minister for the economy, Minister of Finance. We expect that there is supposed to be a better convening engagement. So, of course, if you look at, somebody described the present government as they have the capacity to do, but they seem to be enjoying a lot of distractions in terms of there's so much interest, maybe attention in politics than in governance. And there's a need to come back to governance. So we expect, for example, in terms of policy, that we say, what is the economic agenda of the government? In the next 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, this is exactly what we want to achieve in different sectors. So we expect, for example, you say, Southwest, what do you want to achieve in the next 2-3 years? Southeast, what do you want to achieve in the next 2-3 years? And you do it for the the regions, Northwest, Northeast, North Central, and it's expected for synergy. But of course, everything we do in the federal government, we also have states, we also have local government. So there's supposed to be a proper synergy across these levels of government. So I think, just 1 minute, I think that supposing we have a retreat and say, okay, federal government is going to Southeast to meet with all the Southeast governors for 1 week to deliberate, agree, and say, these are the areas we're going to focus. After 1 week, they will go to North Central and do the same thing for 1 week so that there will be proper synergy. So as the federal government is doing, the state is doing, and also coordinating with local government. Remember that we have needs during the...
We had needs, we had seats,
and we have something like, is it leads or something?
We had Vision 2010,
exactly.
Vision 2020.
So these things are already there. It's about coordination, it's about execution, it's about focus, it's about saying this is important and following it through to achieve the required outcomes.
Okay, before you joined me, I was discussing agriculture. You've talked about agriculture, real sector, and manufacturing.
Yes.
And Prince S.J. Samuel, who is involved in this Produce for Lagos project and the partnership of some of the states with the private sector, yeah, they are talking about agriculture, that you really need to, focus on that. But let me ask you, you mentioned the word governance.
Yes.
Now, governance, I have a series of questions. Number one, let's talk about this confusion about budget. Yeah, okay, we'll soon be talking about 2026 budget.
Yes.
We will be told, we have missed the cycle for the year. Then even if we meet it before December deadline, in the course of the year, they will say we are taking another look at the budget. We are asking for variation. Why is it so difficult to have a budget? And each time they bring the budget, it's a repetition of the same funny thing that was presented the previous year. They will still buy the same refrigerators, the same vehicles will be bought again. Lawmakers, we ask for, what do they call that thing? Constituency project. Yes. They will ask for wardrobe allowance. Now, why are we so cavalier about budgeting for governance?
As you said, the issue of governance is broad. But let me use 3 key areas that enables you to know how a government is performing. So we have rule of law. You are a lawyer, so you understand this more than me. You also have what we call regulatory quality in terms of the effectiveness of regulatory agencies like CBN, NDIC, PENCOM, NICOM, and all that. Then we have government effectiveness, the ability of government to bring up policies and follow it through to ensure proper implementation and execution. So in these 3 areas, we can even put voice and accountability and control of corruption. In these 5 key governance indicators, Nigeria has performed abysmally and has continued to perform abysmally, which now relates to the issue of this. We have 2023 budget that we haven't finished. We have 2024. We have 2025. So it means that about 3 budgets are running concurrently. It shows confusion. It shows lack of effectiveness. It shows lack of capacity to do the right thing. So that also brings me to the issue of, you talked about agriculture. In terms of, so in 2023, Dr. Abati, India made $93 billion from what? From only coconut. I'm talking about coconut that me and you eat, and this processing and the value chain. $93 billion. When you convert it to Naira, it's almost half of our GDP. So that's just one product. So even if we say that we have good coastal line, and we say let's focus on this economic product, coconut, I believe that Nigeria, if we are serious, we can achieve close to what India has achieved, maybe $50 billion from coconut. That will go a long way. And of course, we are immensely blessed in across all the value chain, across all the agricultural products that we have. There was a research that they said that Nigeria, in terms of the palm trees, birds and rats planted 80% of what we have. We as human beings planted only 20%. And imagine what is going on with a company like Presco in the stock market or Komu in the stock market. Their value is increasing on, what do? Is palm oil or palm produce. So it means that there is no area you look at that we don't have that opportunity to do the right thing. But because of this weakness in governance, weakness in paying attention to what is important, that is why we are talking about GDP of 250 billion, and people are saying that we are doing well or we are not doing well, as the case may be. I believe that Nigeria, we should be growing at about 12 to 15%. And we have the potential to do that. Yes, we can do that. And we also, in terms of the economy, we're also supposed to be looking at different areas, as I said before, in terms of how do we ensure synergy between federal government and state government and local government to drive economic growth in Nigeria. But we are not seeing that, which relates to the issue of governance. So another area that people can look at is how do we ensure these governance indicators continue to improve? I was talking to some people, and I also agree that we need also to sit back and say, this democracy that we have, Dr. Abati, is really working for us. In terms of these 4 years that we do, and before you know it, there's a re-election. So I think, and some people are arguing, that the right thing to do might be to say, just do one term of 6 years. And once you finish, you go, another person comes in. It will ensure better governance. It will reduce this attention to politics. It will refocus us in terms of doing what we are supposed to do.
Okay.
Among other governance things that we can look at.
I get your point. I once argued, defending my boss's position, President Jonathan, when he recommended the CCR tenure. But it was politicized and all of that, like everything else. When he talked about deregulation, it was politicized. But now, things that Nigerians rejected at a time, they find comfortable now. Yes. But let me ask you, the Monetary Policy Committee met, I think, this week, or last week, today is Sunday, and they've decided to take an accommodative stance with regard to the benchmark rate, the MPR, the asymmetric corridor, and also other indicators, with the objective to sustain the disinflationary pressure and also contain price pressures. Now, for how long can they do this? Because prices are still high. The foreign exchange market is still a bit shaky. So this is the seventh time that the CBN MPC is taking this position. What do you think?
No, I think that, the MPC maintained the interest rate at 27% because of the belief that inflation is still a big issue.
But the cost of borrowing is high.
It's still high.
Yeah.
So it's a difficult situation to be in. So if we look at it, let me just use pepper, for example. Pepper basket is about 90,000 naira now. It has gone up by from 60,000 naira to about 90,000. So it means that that's about 50%. Tomato, the same thing, has gone up as well. So inflation is still an issue. However, in terms of sustainability, I'm not sure that keeping interest rates high and trying to fight inflation is the only way that the central bank is supposed to be looking at the issues. It relates to the issue of what we talked about, productivity. Because of course, if we are producing more, it means that we can be able to earn more foreign exchange. It means that we can be able to support the economy better. But because we are not producing, we are not using purely monetary policy techniques to see how we can manage the economy. It also brings us the issue of how do we have more coordination between the monetary policy and also the fiscal policy. It also brings the issue of the regulation of the financial services sector. I think that as we are looking at $1 trillion economy, it is time to rethink and say, this proliferation of regulatory agencies, these many agencies that we have, CBN, NDIC, PENCOM, NICOM, and all that, do we still continue with them? Because all the regulatory agencies, all they do, two things, prudential regulation and conduct regulation. So the question, if we are looking at $1 trillion economy, Do we need all these regulatory agencies, or should we bring all of them together and say one should do presidential regulation, the other one will do conduct regulation? I think it will help in terms of cost of regulation, better regulation, systemic risk management, and all that. So these are key reforms that are still required to ensure that we really move this economy forward.
Okay, Prof, I thought that this same administration talked about implementing the Oronsai report.
Yeah.
But each time anybody brings it up, the government comes forward and says, oh, we're going to give effect to the Oronsai report, but it doesn't happen. But one other issue in your sector, the economic sector, is about borrowing. In May, the government said, oh, they needed about 25 billion, right?
Yeah,
$25 billion, and all of that. And that was, of course, after a fashion, true to fashion, as expected, approved by the National Assembly. Now, the same government has come forward now to say it needs another 347, is it million or billion dollars? Million this time around, loan. For one, the Lagos-Calabar Expressway, and two, for, I think, communication access. The 300 million is for communication access. And of course, as is to be expected, the National Assembly will grant it. The argument that the people supporting the loan, this perpetual loan request, is that the international threshold is 56%, and that Nigeria is still just hovering around 50%. So must we borrow beyond the threshold before, we say, well, we are borrowing too much? And what is the effect of this borrowing? Because some other economists will say, it's not borrowing that is the problem. It is what you do with it.
Yeah, personally, I have also canvassed and advocated that the way we are borrowing is not sustainable. Interestingly, we are told that we are not generating more revenue. And of course, it means that the threshold is coming down because we are not having more revenue. But it's not sustainable as well. Currently, if we add what we are borrowing, before you know it, we will be over 200 trillion in terms of what we are owing. It's not sustainable. But what is even important is, what are we even using the money in terms of, are we using to increase productivity or not? From the outcomes, from the GDP, from employment, from inflation, from poverty, from all that, it is not really translating into it. So you talked about Lagos-Calabar road. The question is, did we do proper economic impact assessment of that project before it was commenced? And that is required for other projects. So when you are borrowing, if you are borrowing for something that
the Minister, Dave Umahi,
yes,
has said again and again that the EIA was done.
No, that is environmental impact assessment.
Yes.
So I'm talking about economic impact assessment in terms of how many jobs will be created, how many industries will it support,
yeah, but I think he addressed that too. Saying that it will open up the whole of that corridor all the way to Calabar, and from Calabar to Sokoto.
So what is important, Dr. Abati, it's not about saying things the way you want to say things. It's about looking at the priorities you have as an economy, as a government, and as government, and say which ones are better done now. When nobody's questioning whether a road from Lagos to Calabar will not be important, but is it the most important priority of the government, of the people of Nigeria at this point in time with our economic situation? Some people will argue, not really. So the idea of keep borrowing and borrowing and borrowing is also a function. I talked about budgeting the other time. Remember that budgeting is a democratic financing tool that the National Assembly is supposed to use to checkmate and to ensure proper governance and proper development. But when they miss that opportunity, and anytime anything they bring for them, they just approve. Remember that budget is supposed to, if you are doing a zero budgeting, it means that your expenditure and your revenue should come together. But now, we are just borrowing, and expenditure is just going up, and nobody is even asking, how are we going to even repay these funds? So there is supposed to be a rethink and a reassessment of the way we are. Personally, I do not support it. It's not sustainable. It doesn't show that we are being prudent and pragmatic in terms of what we are going to use the money to do. But of course, it's the government. But what we're supposed to be looking at is how do we even increase our revenue, our productivity, so that even some of the funds can be properly utilized and repaid back as at when due.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank you very much, Professor Franklin Ngwu of the Lagos Business School, Pan-Atlantic University. Thank you very much for joining us.